اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Jazakallah khair, that was not necessary. And I'm deeply, deeply honored and humbled to be here. And I'm incredibly excited to be here, to be witnessing to the fact that we as a community, and we having grown up here and seeing that School Street project and seeing where the roots were, to now be having conversations like this about seeding an endowment and nurturing an endowment and putting in the hard work today, knowing that for virtually everyone in this room, we will likely not see the benefits of this. But we're still committed, prepared, and inshallah, endeavoring on that journey. So briefly, if we turn to the next slide, our firm was quietly started over 18 months ago, but explicitly to serve our institutions and our families in accordance with our values. The team, not just myself, but our broader team of 8 full-time people, have spent the last several decades of their career working in New York, working in Boston, working in California, at what many would consider the elite institutions on Wall Street and otherwise, with the goal to say, well, everything we've learned, how can we take those principles, take those learnings, and apply it for the benefit of our community, done in accordance with our values. And alhamdulillah, over the last 12 months, even less, we've onboarded over 21 institutions, we'll share briefly, as well as a number of families that are increasingly philanthropically oriented to serve the mission and the project of Islam that we're all here and a part of. Turn to the next slide, please. Alhamdulillah, the last couple of points that Brother Asim mentioned are incredibly important. Your community, your team has already taken a number of critical steps, the foundational steps to start the endowment. You have a dedicated endowment committee led by people that you trust in your committee. You have growth champions, the folks that hosted this event, that organized all the legwork that went to make tonight or today happen, is done by leaders who are not just focused on doing a one and done event, but consistently thinking about how we're going to grow this endowment, because it's an ongoing effort. You have an investment manager, and we'll continually provide a lot of disclosure information on what we do, how we invest, and how your money is, inshallah, growing. And crucially, we have a core group of engaged members. This group is going to become the steward and carry this message forward, because it's a true team effort. We turn to the next slide. Our firm was built intentionally with communities like MCMC and the many others that we serve in mind. I helped start Islamic Relief's endowment over 7 years ago. I was helping run MCGP and ICPC's endowment as well. Running an endowment is not something that a group of volunteers with priority number 14 on their list can do. And our whole vision is to be that backbone, working in the shadows to allow our community to scale their endowments across the country. And each step here is something that there's dedicated effort around, from the investment management to client service to bespoke solutions to help grow the endowment. And crucially, and this is something that we highly encourage everyone to spend more time learning about, we have a rigorous Sharia oversight and process. We work with Mufti Faraz Adam of Amana Advisors, very intelligent and reputable scholar. We work with Mufti Mirza Zain Beg, who does an external audit. So your board and your endowment committee spent a considerable amount of time vetting this process, and it's something that's very seriously taken as part of our approach at Manor. Turn to the next slide. Alhamdulillah, as I referenced, over 21 institutions across 8 states. And the reason why that's important is whatever learning, whatever best practice, whatever good is happening in one node in our community nationally can be applied for the benefit of others. And inshallah, together, as part of this broader project of Islam in America, we're going to learn and go on this journey to collectively improve our institutions as a group. Inshallah, next slide. So, why create an endowment? And I'm going to come back to this, and obviously our Sheikh Abdullah and Brother Asim and Maz made very clear appeals for why an endowment. But the first thing, we all know this, it is from our tradition. Our name as One Well is inspired by the well, and the well itself was the first endowment from Hazrat Uthman ibn Affan, the well of Ummah. So we know this legacy of giving endowments, creating endowments, is from our tradition. And at the height of the Ottoman Empire, or about 50% of all land was held in some form of waqf. And they say from cradle to grave services were funded by Islamic WAQF. The evolving donor demographics, This is maybe a kind way of saying that many in our community are now getting older. And this becomes a perfect vehicle for that generation, plus the youngers, to leave a portion of their wasiyah, of their estates, in a way that's not only sadaqah jārīyah that maintains, but if managed well, sadaqah jārīyah that continues to increase. Can you think of a type of sadaqah jārīyah that not only sustains what you originally funded, but inshallah will grow along with what you did? Future-focused planning and moving from a renter to an owner mindset. When you have an endowment, you can dream. You can dare to dream and think about the things that Brother Maz mentioned with all of the amazing things that we aspire to do as a community. We all know this: when you live on your day-to-day needs, or when you live sort of in a hand-to-mouth style, it limits your creativity. It limits your ability to dream. And in honor of my father who's here today, I reckon an endowment is like when your father is holding your hand and says, go pursue your dreams, I have your back. I will be there if you fall. And if you have a corpus of capital like an endowment, you as a community can do those things. Next slide, please. I won't belabor this point, but I look at this slide with actually much excitement. The largest school endowment today in Islamic school is $13 million. It's a school in Irvine. And the largest, putting aside Dr. Mirza Yaqub's Safa Trust, is Yaqeen that we touched on. And if you look to the right-hand side, these are very well established, from the Mormon Church to Harvard University to the Mayo Clinic. This is the opportunity that we have. We are at the early stages of institution building, but we're at a critical juncture, because the work that we do today, in multiple decades from now, will allow us to be at the levels that we've seen others that preceded us to get to. Next slide, please. All right, these next two slides are very important. So we're going to take this concept of the WAQF and make it very specific to the needs of MCMC. So today, and these numbers are directional, your operating budget is roughly $1 million. I know it's a little bit less, but just to keep the math simple, it's roughly $1 million. And we're fully reliant on day-to-day donations, your Ramadan campaign, etc. And we don't have a permanent and perpetual source of giving, so the endowment contribution is near zero. In 20 years, your operating budget will be at least $4 million. It will double every 10 years. That's a 7% growth. That's slightly combined with inflation and growth in the community. And if we want to up level, it will likely be even more. And this is a good problem. The fact that we're growing our needs and we're growing the services. We should, as a community, have a goal that 50% of that future budget can be funded through the sustainable giving from the endowment. So 50% of our future $4 million annual budget will come from the endowment. And if you withdraw 5% from the endowment, you need somewhere between a $40 to $50 million endowment in 20 years to achieve that. And sitting here, when I say $40, $50 million, many of you may be thinking that I am sort of posing a challenge that may be too steep. But if I look at this table in particular, and if you remember where you were on the basement of the School Street building, and now on a Saturday for Fajr where you have hundreds of people coming, could you have dreamed that then? So this is what we will work towards, and these goals should feel like a stretch, but we've done it before. So if we turn to the next slide. So this today, your endowment, which was created and funded in November of 2025, was funded with $45,000. And it's grown about 2 to 3% in the 1 month since it's been invested. An endowment can't really grow unless you seed it with something. And obviously a $45,000 amount is a very modest amount, particularly given what we're talking about. So we need to seed this endowment with more than what it is today, the $45,000. So let's, as a group, work to seed it. If you then click on the next couple things, I'm going to walk through each of these. For the next 10 years, let's all commit that we will not withdraw a dollar from the endowment. Compounding is a beautiful thing, but compounding only works if you give your money time to compound. So we're not going to touch. So the reason why this is really important is because you're going to need to change your HVAC system. You're going to need to change your roof. You're going to need to repave the parking lot. You're going to need to expand your school. You're going to need to do a lot of the core services that MCMC has to do. And members of this community will be, well, we have an endowment. We have $1 million endowment. We have a $3 million endowment. We have a $5 million endowment. Let's take funds from there. And this group needs to be the voice that says, no, we're going to let that money compound. We're going to allow it to continue to grow for the next 10 years, and we're going to do the work that's needed to make sure we take care of the ongoing needs of the community. Starting in year 10, we can start withdrawing, and I'll come back to that point. The next thing is, every year we have to continue to seed the endowment. So as part of your annual fundraising, keep doing that, keep having dedicated campaigns to fundraise, and then set aside a portion. Some years will be higher, some years will be lower, but every year set aside some portion of your funding for the growth of the endowment. And then this last piece, which is critical, is we as a community need to become better organized around planned givings. The example of Yale, the example of every endowment had its transformative moment when some large benefactor or a group of benefactors left behind for the benefit of that institution something from their estate. So how do we as a community not just focus on the 5 people that we believe can give the most, but get everyone organized, regardless of the dollar amount, to leave some portion of their estate to the benefit of the community that they love and hold near and dear. And I'll touch briefly on ways to do that and ways that we're working to make it easier to do it so it is more streamlined. Turn to the next slide. The core pillars of an endowment. So this endowment is a multi-generational project. It is as I mentioned, a project where many of us in our lifespan are unlikely to receive the full benefit or much benefit at all. Is firstly to have it be part of a broader mission, and I'll touch on this point next. Second is deep governance, and this is the work that Brother Asim alluded to, between having the right committee structures, the right investment framework, the right withdrawal strategies, so that the vehicles are well established for the long run. And then long-term, both investment stewardship as well as community education and transparency. If we turn to the next slide. This first point on mission alignment is actually really, really important. One of the questions I'm sure many of you guys would ask, and I found myself asking while I was at Princeton, is if you already have a $36 billion endowment, why would someone give more to that institution? Why does that institution need more money? And if you're running a $36 billion endowment in this example, how do you describe what you're doing with that endowment? So Princeton is not out there saying, hey, we pay the bills of our electricity or operations. What they're allowing their community and their stakeholders to realize is that 70+% of Princeton students go their tuition and come out debt-free. 81 Nobel laureates have worked at Princeton. So your ability to recruit and bring on not just the best, but the absolute best talent in the world. Moonshot projects that don't have any payback, be it in AI, biomedicine, genetics, can get researched and funded because you have an endowment that allows you to take these large projects. And then of course, there's the beautiful space that's motivating, energizing, and there's also an element of a personal legacy or a family legacy that you can leave behind. So giving to an endowment is in many ways furthering that bold and ambitious vision that that institution has. So as a community, we should have these bold ambitions for ourselves. How can we build a prophetic community? How can we do dawah at scale? Not just by giving pamphlets to folks parked nearby, but leaning into healthcare, shelter, food security, and do this in a very bold and ambitious way. How can we create the engines for our youth to thrive spiritually, socially, economically, and do that with tremendous resources, again, which an endowment facilitates. Next slide. You can skip to the next slide. Our role at OneWell is to operate in the shadows. Your team, you see them hopefully consistently at your mosque, and we want to make their job easier as volunteer board members to have the tools and the transparency to build trust with you. If you're contemplating giving to something, you want to feel it is well managed, well organized, and transparent, and that is our role. So in the coming weeks, between education collateral, planned giving guides, an online portal, and an annual report, these are the types of things, and there's a growing list, that you will have available to you so that you can support this project with confidence. And we turn to the next slide. There are many ways to give to an endowment. And in many ways, you have to be thoughtful in taking advantage of the right ways to give so that you maximize the giving to those institutions as well as minimize taxes that you otherwise would incur. A few common things, and there will be more specifics on each, is we all know there's room in your wasiyah to give to any dedicated organization, up to 1/3 of your wasiyah. And there's ways now we've made that easy, and there'll be a QR code where you can scan and we can help you along that process if that's of interest. You can designate certain assets. You may own real estate, you may have 401k, you may have other insurance products, you may have certain investment products that you can designate that during your lifetime you can use the benefit of it, and then upon your passing it can go on to those that you designate as part of your giving. Appreciated assets. This is arguably the most simple, but it's still very surprising how many of you, whether you're sitting on appreciated stocks, crypto, or other assets, oftentimes we see people sell those assets and then give it to the intended organization when it is way more tax advantage to directly transfer those securities, and how we can make that easy for you. And lastly, there are other tax advantage strategies, whether you're over 70 and a half, and how you give from your IRA or your 401ks, or if you have a major tax event year. Many of you will own businesses. You'll have specific years in your careers where you'll have large income events. And in those years, it behooves you to take advantage of what taxable savings you can make in that year. So there are a number of strategies to facilitate that. And I'll leave with the final slide, and then of course I'll be available as well as the whole team for further questions. If you're interested in facilitating the wasiyah process or learning about tax advantage ways to give, scan that QR code. Someone from our team will be in touch and follow up with you and walk you through that, so you can keep that up there. And then I strongly encourage everyone to know that this is a process. And like anything, it will take time. But please engage, please support and get started in contributing on this project of strengthening our institutions. Jazakallah khair.